You're gonna want to hear this. The following is guaranteed to knock your ears right off.
Yeah. And we're on. Hello, Matt.
Hello, Liam.
Nice to see you again since last Monday.
Yeah, hopefully this episode I will not be really crazy.
That's be determined. Tonight we have two special guests, Jack.
Yep, I'm Jack O'Connell. I'm a biology student. I'm very passionate about biology and all sorts of science and philosophy and psychology and all that stuff.
Yep.
Yeah, and we also have Caesar.
It's Caesar.
Hello.
Hello, Caesar.
I'm Caesar Velez. Biochem and bio majors. And just like Jack, interested in medical science, more along the physical aspect. Yeah, glad to be on.
We're glad to have you both. Bree will not be back until next Wednesday, so until then, Jack will be taking on Bree's role for the next two shows. So we will have Bree back, though.
Yeah, we're gonna have Bree's gonna be our co-host, but until then, Jack will fill her
I
spot.
hope I can live up to her
Standards.
You can't.
Exactly.
Never.
Sorry to tell you that.
It can't happen, man.
Won't happen, can't happen, will never happen.
All right, should we say our topics?
Yeah, so tonight we're going to talk about mythical creatures from mythologies and folklore from like Native Americans, tribes, a lot of things around the world. We're going to go into topics about that, talk about the creatures exactly, and then we're going to talk about the science behind a lot of it and like why they can't really exist in these days. Then Matt's going to do his philosophy question, and then we're going to talk about folklore creatures, like the most popular ones that everyone kind of knows about.
Yeah. That is the rundown, man.
That is the rundown. So, until then, we're going to go on a break, like we always do, and listen to some music. Matt hopefully likes the music this time.
What is it?
You're probably not going to like it, Matt.
Oh, okay.
It's never your style.
Yeah, nothing's my style, right?
We'll find something for you.
Please.
Until then, please enjoy Run by Joji. And we're back.
Welcome back.
Thank you, Matt. How are you?
I'm doing great, man.
It was a good break, right? Wasn't it?
Yeah, like
Being
relaxed.
a little chaotic.
I breathed.
Nope.
Oh, I guess I didn't breathe.
You breathed.
Thanks,
But
man.
you didn't just breathe.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
What about now?
Okay.
Just get on with it, man.
All right, so we're going to start going into mythological creatures, mostly just from mythology. And we have our friend Jack here to actually help explain a lot of the science behind them.
I'll try. I'm no expert.
No
I'm a
expert.
student, so.
None of us are experts with any of these things. We're just very people with a good bit of knowledge about some things.
Yeah, we know a thing or two.
Socrates would beg to differ.
Epistemologically speaking, I mean, what do you actually know?
All right, so we're going to go into our first creature, and we're going to the griffin. Now, the griffin was a Greek creature that was half lion, half eagle, and it was a lot of interpretation of the griffin, and like there's a lot of people that use it in pop culture, like Harry Potter, like has used it, and like a good example is the movie Prisoner of Azkaban. Gryffindor, exactly.
Yeah.
There's like a lot of things like that. It's been it's out of any like the creature we're talking about, that's probably the one that people would know about, the ones we're talking about at least, like kind of off the bat, because a lot of people kind of wonder how or like why people thought of these creatures. So
Yeah, Jack, do you know if a griffin could possibly exist in our world or not?
I mean, it's kind of hard to say because, it's kind of like a mishmash between, it's like a Frankenstein of two different creatures that have two very different evolutionary lineages. And, I mean, yes, they did share a common ancestor at one point. At one point, they were the same species.
yeah.
As all living things all share a common ancestor. But it's hard to say because it's kind of just...
Do you want to explain kind of like for like the breakdown, like kind of the evolution of birds,
Like
for example.
amoebas.
Yeah, like not.
Well, I think birds are the descendants of dinosaurs.
Yeah.
Actually,
Mm-hmm.
there's actually a lot of debate on whether dinosaurs had current descendants and whether birds were those based on transitional fossils that were found.
Yeah.
I believe Archaeopteryx was one of the main ones, which is like a bird-like dinosaur that allowed scientists to confirm that they actually did come from what we call dinosaurs.
Yeah. So like my question is like, because for example, like birds came from dinosaurs and they had like claws and like feathers and like fur, almost like some dinosaurs did, some didn't, and that's when we've learned more about they're not just like the ones from Jurassic World or Jurassic Park.
T-Rex had feathers.
Yeah,
It's not
where
just
it's not just like lizard skin. it's more than that. So like my question is kind of like, if birds kind of evolved from the dinosaurs, how come like they've never like branched out to a thing of like a griffin? You know what I mean? Like a figure like that, like big and masculine.
Well, I mean, like how? Well, the question is, how did they go into the air?
Yeah.
And why haven't they developed adaptation on the ground as well as in the air?
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
It's a good question
Yeah.
because, if you just think about it in your gut, you say, "Oh, that's crazy. That's not going to happen." But look at whales.
Yeah.
They took a weird trip.
Yeah.
They were on
whales
the-
had legs.
Right. They
Yeah.
they were They were four-legged mammals that went into the ocean
Yeah.
and are now completely. You know what I mean? It's. I mean, and there are some birds now that lost their wings don't even work, so they do have that ability.
Yeah.
But they just use the legs they have.
Yeah, like
obviously.
penguins
Yeah,
and like
exactly.
ostriches, like they can't fly.
Flightless birds.
So
yep.
they have wings.
Mhm.
So like, what do you think, Caesar?
Well, having recently taken a class in ecology, it was weird learning about evolution, I will say.
Yeah.
It's just a lot of the time what they define as a need for evolution is just competition.
Mm-hmm.
So it's when there's a resource and it's limited, things evolve to either go after a new resource or to better go after the current.
Mm-hmm.
So probably the reason why there may have never been a griffin is because there was never a need for a flight capable animal that size
That
in our
can just
current
go on the
era.
ground too, and just kind of like attack on the ground too. Like,
Or it could even have just been a matter of there's no kind of like a habitatual way in a way. There's not enough resources to support a creature that big.
yeah,
Because think about what it means. They use a lot of energy just to fly alone because
they would be like apex predators if they were like a real thing.
Well, that's the thing. You combine the two creatures, the lion and the
An eagle.
an eagle.
Yeah.
Like the lion is specifically designed to be the apex predator of its specific environmental niche.
And the eagle for its
Right.
basically, yeah.
And there's a lot of energy that goes into evolving the necessary
Mhm.
circuitry,
Yeah.
associated with that. Yep.
And just on top of that, it almost just feels almost impossible in the way just because it's trying to do the best in both worlds, but in any depiction you ever look at of a griffin, it almost seems like it kind of stopped halfway into trying to do both.
Yeah.
Usually
yeah.
there are transition species that are known for kind of representing both of the past and the current, but usually it's a very slow transition that feels natural. Like when originally fish moved onto land, you could see over time like it started with fins and then the fins got stronger, but to go from bird to lion or from lion to bird almost feels not necessary.
And one example of how it wouldn't happen is think about lions.
Yeah.
The difference between lions and birds. Lions have solid bones.
Yeah.
Birds have hollow bones. That would not happen where
'cause you can't
suddenly
have
this
two different
lion
types of
would
bones,
suddenly
yeah.
like evolve to have hollow bones.
Yeah.
Because there would have to be some adaptive benefit in the transitional state of this lion having
It would
osteoporosis.
have
which
half solid, half hollow bones, and I just don't see the benefit in that because honestly, at that point, like, doesn't it make it just like a little weaker, especially like on the front half? Because front half if it's an eagle, on the back half's a lion. So
right.
like,
I mean, it would be osteoporosis. And if you
Yeah.
can't fly, you would just suffer.
yeah, exactly. Anything from you, Matt?
I would say, yeah, I don't think it's ever possible for like a griffin to exist because I mean it just went down like two different evolutionary paths. They can't really coincide together in the way that it would in the the real world.
The reason I'm asking too is because like they're doing a lot of things, especially like with woolly mammoth, trying to bring the woolly mammoth back with a different type of elephant. Like, so like I like another example is like they're trying to take like an extinct like deer basically and try to use like a different type of animal, not deer, to make that animal back. So like, how are they able to use a different animal that's not a deer or like an assistant of deer and try to bring another like an ancient deer back with that? You know, like I don't understand that.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think they would just have to, because they're doing weird stuff like that now, where they can grow embryos, like human embryos, and like maybe we could get a fact check on this, or just look it up. But I believe they were growing like it was either like mouse embryos or human embryos in like a lamb and like in like an artificial womb.
Oh, they were making artificial what was it, like lungs or something, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, they were trying to be able to get a developing fetus in another species or outside of the original, like the mother it was in originally.
Yeah.
And I think they may have done it in another species. Mouse, and did they put it into another species like womb or something? No, yeah.
So like, because the reason I asked, like, especially like I keep going back to like the griffin thing, but like they're trying to take like pig livers and put them in humans,
Yep.
or like pig hearts, I mean, and put them in humans. Like, if we're able to like take other animals' parts and kind of like mishmash with ours, like why can't we like do that? And that's a good transition into the manicore.
Well, the thing is, like, if you took rat skin,
Yeah.
right, and you try to sew it onto your own arm, right, it would become necrotic. Your body would reject it, right? Same thing with a lot of like organ transplants, right? Your body will reject the foreign organ or tissue.
Yeah.
But there's ways that scientists now are able to genetically reprogram certain tissues to, or use drugs, certain things to reduce the chance of rejection.
Yeah. So we'll go from that, actually, from like human and all that, like with the animals, we'll go into the manicore, actually. The manicore was from Persian mythology in 1200, the 12th century, I guess. I don't know how you say it, but like from like 1230 to 1240, like the Persians believed in the manicore, basically.
This is BC or AD?
I think it was BC, or AD. I can't really remember. Can I get a fact check on that, please, Joe? Thank you.
Rather CE and BCE. I think that's the proper scientific.
What are you talking about?
And the thing with, there's two different versions of manicore. Like there's a version where it's part lion with a tail of a scorpion with a human head, and the other version is a lion body with a scorpion tail with eagle wings and a lion's head and a goat's head. So like the Persians like saw a manicore with a human head, like the first version with a human head, lion's body, and a scorpion's tail. So like it's kind of interesting to see how people like nowadays we're trying to do that now with animals, like kind of like integrating with humans, like with a pig heart, everything like that, and
some of that Frankenstein stuff is becoming reality.
Yeah.
Yep.
You were asking Mythical origin?
Yep.
404 BC.
404 BC.
A little off.
Let's not get
That's
lost
what.
in the numbers.
Let's not get lost in the numbers,
they're
man.
just numbers, mumbo jumbo, you know. Not real.
404 BC. All right, but yeah, like it's interesting because, especially the manicore, it's interesting, and like the reason they did this too is like they talked about with the human head and all that was because a lot of times actually like the Persians thought the manicore would use like a lady's head to lure a man close to them, so that when the human like let's say like around the corner, like he pops his head around the corner and just starts like, "Ooh, hey guy," and then the guy like was like walks over there, like the lion would just like the manicore would pull him in, stab him with the like scorpion tail, and that would be it.
Biologically, it can technically make sense in the sense that the traits have a purpose, but realistically, it probably is more based around sort of society at the time in general. I mean, look how primitive it was. 400 BC. That's a really long time ago.
Yeah.
That's before really anything on how you could fact check. The only way that you could really say something's true is just, did Phil over there say it? Did our neighbor also?
Yeah, I think a lot of the time it was just like folk tale. They would talk about these things, and then like if a man went missing, like I think they would just have like those like reasons to explain why he's gone, or like but this guy could just get lost somewhere and just end up somewhere.
It probably might even be one of those things where it could be parents probably making sure their kids kind of understand that the world can be dangerous even as long ago as that. I mean,
yeah.
Look how it is nowadays. We have the idea of Krampus. We literally created him out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And who knows, maybe several hundred years from now, it'll be one of those things again where just people all of a sudden believe that we thought at the time.
We have Santa, we have Krampus. 100 years later, we'll have Jampus.
Exactly.
And I think like one theme you're kind of touching on is how religion and mythology can ultimately, I mean, this may be like an atheist, like Christopher Hitchens position, but can ultimately be viewed as a tool.
Yeah.
Right? It was something that helped us throughout our evolution. And we use religion and mythology to fill gaps in our understanding about the natural world. So you could see how things like that evolved, but then that also leads us to the fact that the human brain didn't evolve to be the ultimate truth-seeking device.
Yeah.
You know, it evolved to get us to manage the social world and reproduce before we die.
Yeah.
You know.
I think evolutionarily speaking, I don't know. Have you heard like the argument that we didn't actually develop like logic, but what we actually think is logic is just like an evolutionary mechanism in order to survive better? It's not actually what we really define as logic, or what would actually be like true logic.
I heard something about that, not really much.
Well, we could trace, I mean, what is logic? We could trace it back to like very, very basic predatory instinct. Like, oh, I saw that thing move left, and there's a tree there, and now I can't see it.
Yeah.
So it's probably behind the tree. Like, that's the most rudimentary form of what we could call logic. And then that just gets layered and layered and layered over thousands of years, and suddenly we can, you know, answer trolley problem questions.
Suddenly math,
Yeah,
science.
I feel like, though, even logic could probably, especially nowadays, be defined as a way for us to just temporarily feel at ease with the unknown. I mean, we, as the human brain, we physically cannot understand the complexity of our world and just the universe in general. We're discovering things every day. We're learning new stuff every day. Sometimes the unknown can just be so stressful and so uncertain that we just create these kind of false truths. It's not exactly lying, but it's just filling in the blank.
It's kind of like when you like are sleeping alone in your house and you hear like a noise and you're like, no, wait, there's no way. You know, logically speaking, there's no way somebody broke into my house.
Yeah.
It keeps you at ease. Instead of being paranoid.
Like how Kiskin said, sleeping alone, as if that's an unusual occasion.
Oh, no. Yeah, not for me.
It's okay, Kissin. I do too.
Nice, man.
Shake hands on that.
Yeah, whatever
All
you
right,
want.
Okay. The next one we're gonna talk about is dragons, actually. And Caesar, before the show, had a good question. Like, if dragons didn't exist, then why did so many cultures over like almost the whole world, like Aztecs, like Vikings, places in Asia, England, like all these places believed in giant lizards that breathed fire that could fly, and it almost was the exact same thing across the entire world. Like, why did all these places have almost the same picture of the same thing and had the same aspect of it breathing fire, flying, all this stuff, if it didn't exist?
I think it depends on when these nations existed, because I mean, if you know you discover another nation, you know, had this dragon or whatever, you know, the first one who started it, you're like, oh, well, why do they believe this? You know, and then you start like confirmation bias. You're like, oh, you see like these.
Well, a lot of these places like were almost at the same time. It was weird because like all these places were at the same time, like the Vikings and places in Asia. Like Vikings didn't go to Asia, and like people from Asia didn't go to like Norway, but like at the same time they had like the same kind of stories from two different places.
Well, it's a perfect example of a convergent evolution, right? You have these populations that come from distinct genetic backgrounds and they converge on a similar outcome. In this case, it's a psychological outcome. And what we can connect that to, which we see in a lot of cultures in terms of psychological themes or archetypes, whatever you want to call it, is the hero's myth, the hero's journey, right? Going down into the depths, being transformed, and then being reborn. And you could say, like, oh, where do these things come from? And that's a great question, but there's also a question of to what extent were the circuits in our brain predisposed to developing these sorts of connections given the social environment, because neurons can be very specific. There's neuroscientists have done research. There's a funny study that they call like the Jennifer Aniston study or whatever, but they were able to track the Jennifer Aniston when people were told to think about her. They were able to, or they said her name. They were able to track it to specific neurons, like very specific neurons. Like, so to what extent are we predisposed to have these specific patterns caught in our circuitry based on the environment? I don't know. But I mean, it could be some sort of spread through communication across cultures.
Yeah, I just find it really weird, to be honest. Like, and there's like stories like Grindelwald. I don't know if you guys read that story at all.
I don't think so.
Where it's this guy that was like, or Beowulf, I should say. Beowulf was a hero that slayed a dragon basically towards the end of his life. It's a long, very long story. I just gave like the quickest explanation of it. But, like, it's another story that's like that was told for a very long time about a dragon. It had the same kind of thing.
Yeah, but it's so interesting, the dragon specifically. I mean, it's like, how the heck did that happen?
Yeah.
That it's this specific creature that all these cultures are adapted on. It's incredible.
Yeah.
See, I could get like a flying lizard, but I can't get the breathing fire part. Like, where did that come from?
I know, but that's the thing where all of them had it.
That's like impossible.
Hot breath has existed for as long as time.
Well,
oh man, don't get me started about one of my friends, right?
yeah, but like even then, it's just crazy that these cultures, like, it'd be fine if it was like flying lizards. That's fine, whatever, that happened. Like, the people could do that, but like the breathing fire part, where they just had like the same thing over like all these places, and they happened at the same time, where there's like no way these places could like meet each other yet, and all this stuff. Because Norway, the only farthest they gone was to Russia. They never went anywhere farther into Asia, into China, and all these places. In China, especially, was a fractured place with different dynasties at the time, and there was no unity there for them to be able to like go there and like all together have the same information mattered. And like the farthest they went east was to North America, and even then, like, it never spread into North America, and they only went to England, France, Greenland, Iceland, and North America. That's the farthest the Vikings had gone, like, around the world.
I mean, what kind of habitat would you need to support such a huge dragon, right? And when you see like remnants of maybe like burned areas or something, or maybe that's what they saw.
A lot of these places think that like they live in volcanoes.
They live in volcanoes.
A lot of these people think they do.
Oh. Well, when you also see like a bunch of burned, maybe the volcanoes had like molten something that like destroyed an area.
Yeah.
They're like, oh wait, a dragon must have done it.
They're probably like, where's the one place no one's gonna look?
Yeah, really. But even then, like in Norway, there's barely any volcanoes there, and same thing with like a lot of places. Like, again, like a few places have volcanoes. Not every single place that Bleeding Dragon did, So,
but even where there isn't volcanoes, like with Norway, for example, their version of the dragon, instead of being like, your stereotype, breathe fire, lives in lava, it's more like a water dragon almost. Yeah. They're like sea serpents, but they still look exactly like a dragon.
Even in Greeks' time, they had Scylla, which was a sea monster that would pull ships down into the water that looked like a dragon. And even going to our next creature, actually, the Hydra, in Greece, like the Hydra was another type of dragon that, like, if it cut off one head, two more would grow. And like the Greek hero Hercules, right? What? Oh yeah, what's up?
It is from Hesiod's
Theogony.
700 BC.
700 BC. Like Hydra in like Greek terms, as well, was like a thing that like Hercules fought it, and Hercules cut off a head. Another one grew, another one grew, another one grew. Every time he grew it, like 2 more would grow after it. And at one point it was like so many heads they had to crush under a rock because he couldn't kill it with cutting its head. And a lot of times, like, there's an animal called Hydra that lives in the ocean that is like the same thing. Like it's the immortal animal. It can't age, it can't die. When you cut it, it just will regrow. So, Jack.
I mean, I could talk about like the regeneration and like how that, because there's some animals that have similar regenerative properties, like some lizards and stuff that grow their tails back after they can they drop their tails.
Yeah.
I could touch on some of like the mechanism, I guess, the cellular mechanism and how that could. So
do the science, you know.
Yeah, whatever the science.
Whatever the science is, man.
So like, you know, how do cells develop? How do limbs develop? So it comes from stem cells,
Yeah.
right? And how do these stem cells know to grow into fingers or toes and into these specific places? Well, within these stem cells, within their genome, there's specific genetic programs that are being activated, depending on neighboring cells, depending on when those came into being, and that genetic program tells them extend this distance and stop at this point. And a lot of it comes down to really, really, really basic signaling mechanisms where one cell will proliferate into 2 cells, and now that there's 2 cells, that one of those cells is getting a signal saying, "Hey, there's a guy next door. We have enough." You know, so it's basic stuff like that. You know?
Yeah, but like, do you know about the Hydra, like, animal in the water?
A little bit. I mean, I think if we were to try to like apply some of the regenerative stuff, like to that extent, it gets pretty crazy because it's not like there's creatures that can completely regenerate a head and brain.
Well, that's what it can do.
Right.
It literally can. Like,
Oh, yeah, what, you see a Hydra?
no, but like this animal literally, like is immortal. It can't age. It literally can't.
Yeah, it's really interesting. They're
looking into like using stem cells from that instead of like people. You know.
I thought you were talking about the mythical creature, the Hydra.
No, like I'm talking about the mythical creature and the real life creature. So
they recently found these like worms or something that the way they reproduce or something is split. Or they split in half and then they like. But there's some interesting thing where the ones that are living now are literally the same ones that existed millions of years ago. By nature of their reproductive method, they literally just like split and they're able to just like grow, split and grow, split and grow, and they're the same ones. You know what I mean? They're the same individuals, you know, but they just redevelop new tissue and split and redevelop new tissue and split.
Yeah.
Humans should do that, right?
Yeah, I mean, it'd be kind of cool, you know, especially if I panicked and just dropped my arm and just grew a new one, like a lizard.
Yeah,
I mean,
like people do.
I wonder if maybe even part of it isn't just so much the idea of, oh, what if there's this immortal thing that it can't die? But thinking about it can't die, doesn't that feel almost symbolic in a weird way? The idea that some evil creature like that just can't die no matter how hard a hero like Hercules tries.
Yeah. It is very symbolic. Yeah, I mean, that's probably why they wrote the story too in that way of like making this thing like almost unkillable, you know.
How did Hercules beat it, if you know?
Smashing a rock
Oh.
on it. Like he buried it basically.
Oh, so it's
I
still
think
alive?
he buried it under a mountain. Like I
Yeah.
think it's gone, but like I'm not sure.
Just
Like
bury all your problems. under
make
the
sure you don't
mountain.
dig any mountains anytime soon, people. Hercules might have done something.
One thought I had before to bring it back to the manticore kind
Yeah.
of, just another example of convergent evolution is you were talking about how it had in some stories, some accounts, it had the face of a female,
Yeah.
like to draw in.
Yeah.
And we see that in other creatures, right?
Yes.
And like what are they, the sirens?
Sirens,
Medusa,
mermaids,
where it's kind of like that idea.
pixies,
kind of.
yeah, all these things, yeah.
I just thought it was another cool example of
No.
convergent evolution. Yeah.
No, they're definitely like so many, like especially the sirens, like sirens, like in Greek terms, would have ships. Ships would come into the ocean and visit these sirens when they're passing by, and the sirens would sing to the sailors to try to like lure them into the ocean, not to get with the guy at all. And that's what the guy thought, because when they sang, like it would mess with the mind and force them into the water. What would happen is like they did that so they could get them into the water, and then they would drown them and eat them basically. which is crazy.
No, the craziest part is how every siren is female.
Yeah.
How'd that happen?
Listen, man, I don't.
Where's all the male sirens?
I want to see some male sirens.
Of course you do.
I wonder if that just kind of even relates to like those old sea stories, if you will, like
Mhm.
about how sailors talk about, oh, when I was deep in the ocean, further than anyone could have ever have gone, I saw a kraken.
Well, you know, a lot of times, like, you see ships with, like, a female mermaid or siren on the front of them. It was a symbol of, like, we're going to sink you, basically.
Mm.
Because we're going to sink you down to the depths of the sirens and the mermaids where they can just have fun with you, you know? So...
Have fun with you.
Doesn't sound too bad.
Sink me down.
All right. On that note, I think we're going on a little break, and I'm gonna beat up Matt on break.
It's all right.
Until then, though, any song recommendations? Anyone?
Anything but Joji.
Oh, you don't like Joji?
Anything but whatever you play.
Well, I guess that's it. Just talk. I'm gonna do a country song, "One Number Away" by Luke Combs. Sound good?
Yep.
Great. All right. Thank you and enjoy. And we're back.
Nice.
Matt, you stressed me out so much, man.
I was just looking at you, man.
No, you were not. There's a camera right there that could see everything you did.
What'd I do?
Nothing, but you just talked.
Yeah, that's what I
that
thought.
was it.
That's what I thought.
Okay, man, whatever. So during the break, actually, we talked about there is male
There's a male siren.
sirens called Trident, and they are like human-like, but instead of like their upper parts being human, it's literally their face is fish-like and their hands are only human-like. So like a lot of times, like they'd stick their hands out to pretend like they're drowning, and that's a human. And then when a human grabs their hand, they would pull them down. So, all right. Other than that, though,
Hold on, wait. Serious question, though. What came first, the trident or the fork?
okay. The Trident. Matt, now we're on to the segment where Matt asks a philosophy question. We do this every Wednesday, and here we go, Matt.
All right, I got it written down here. Past my flat Earth.
Collection of evidence.
Yeah, my my evidence nobody wants to see. All right, I have like 3, but here. We'll go with like the hardest one probably.
Okay.
Do you think?
We can do all 3, so.
All right. Actually, I'll do the easiest one first.
Okay, then.
All right. What kind of features would you want humans to have in respect to other animals if you could like genetically engineer them?
Oh, man. I thought about this a lot, actually. Not even going to lie.
All
So
right.
I'll let Caesar go first.
I'm a pretty big fan of the prehensile tail, honestly.
Oh, wait, what?
What is
Yeah,
that?
yeah,
It's
like
like-
all of us.
It's like you know how like certain kinds of monkeys, how they have like the really long tails that they
Can
can
it grab something?
Yeah, it's
Oh,
It's got enough muscle in the small enough structure that they can treat it like kind of like a weird arm.
So we're going to build a human right now. So far we have a tail. Jack?
I'm thinking about this one.
Okay, I'll go back to
Think
you.
about it
back
in the
to
mic then. All right, here.
Speak in the mic if you're going to speak. Kiskin.
What would I want humans to have?
So far, we're building a human together.
Yeah.
So we have a tail that can grab things. So what would you want to add to a human?
I probably want like webbed feet.
Webbed feet?
Instead of like flippers, so we can like kind of
Swim through faster. So we have webbed feet in hands.
Wouldn't
and
it get harder for it to like move on land?
and
No.
yes,
Well,
yes.
yeah, but then.
So then why would we have a tail
Yeah.
and webbed feet? It's fine. He wants that.
Wait,
so
I want
Oh,
that.
yeah. So that's
What's your problem?
that's what he wants.
Yeah.
Caesar. Have you thought of yours yet, Jack?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I wouldn't mind like being totally covered in hair again.
Say that again.
Huh?
I wouldn't mind being totally covered in hair again.
What?
You know what I mean? If we
Hair?
became, yeah, I mean, that
Oh,
wouldn't.
wow.
You know what I mean? I could just live up in Canada and be fine and be totally coated and insulated with a nice coat of fur.
This can't
Who's opposed to that?
exist.
But you just have clothes anyway, right?
Yeah, but like, you don't even have to buy clothes or think about clothes.
Okay.
You
So
don't have to pick out your outfit every morning.
I don't. I just put on the same clothes every day.
The Steve Jobs
Yeah.
approach.
Well, what do you think, Liam? You have
I
an answer?
would add a kangaroo pouch. So quick.
Nice for snacks and stuff.
Oh yeah,
Oh yeah.
it'd be so easy.
Would it do the same thing it does with like how kangaroos like give birth in that pouch too?
It would be the same thing. It'd
So
be
only
easier.
women have it.
Oh, nope, men have it too.
Oh, so everyone could give birth.
Nope.
Oh,
Because a male kangaroo has a pouch.
I'm not sure about.
So you'd
that.
like humans to be marsupials.
Kind of, but only. Never mind. You know
what?
only women.
Say it.
I think actually women kangaroo have pouches, so I guess only girls will have the pouch.
Yeah.
So, and then
Hasn't got a pouch.
Yeah.
Oh.
oh wait, dude, they do?
They don't.
They don't. Okay, so I guess
I
that.
feel like that. I mean, that kind of makes sense. It's kind of tying back to like that whole evolution topic where
Mhm.
the males had. It takes energy to change your body.
Yeah,
So it makes no sense for a male to have to.
but no, but I'll give a
Evolve
male, I'll give a pouch to a male and a girl.
You think we'd want wings?
No, what
No,
did you say,
That'd be
Jack?
Cool.
What did I say?
What would you want a person?
Oh, I said having hair. Having been
Oh.
totally covered in hair.
So we got the hairiest webbed feet, long tail, and a pouch. That just
basically
looks-
like the devil.
Yeah.
Sounds like.
Literally,
No, wait, why not wings? Like we instead of like
because I could just take a plane.
yeah,
I-
but that costs money.
Oh, you know what would be cool?
What?
Like a platypus, like a poisonous spur or something on her foot. Or like we can lay
Like
eggs.
one long nail.
Yeah.
Just-
yeah.
Just stab them.
I'd probably get like Hawkeyes, and then just so I could see far distances.
Yeah, that's smart.
Okay, what's your next question, man?
Hey, man, I just wanted wings. all right. If we could genetically engineer the animals that we like talk about, like mythological creatures,
Yep.
would we create them, and what benefit to society would they have?
So if we made our own creature,
yeah,
and like what would it do? That's a good
Yeah.
question. I had to think about that one. Does anyone have an answer off the bat?
I got it.
Okay.
I
the
got this one.
confidence. The confidence.
I'd make my own special one. It would be a giant centipede.
What's the purpose?
A very, very creepy bus.
oh, okay.
So you just make a giant bus.
Think about it. Like, instead of the metro system, we have a giant centipede running through.
It's all fun and games until he goes rampage. Somebody like gives
Until-
him
until
one
you get-
drug. It's
Until you
over.
get one big Godzilla,
That'll
and you're
make a
done.
very good movie.
The Centipela? I don't know.
Human Centipede's a great movie.
Centipede.
No, what is wrong with you, Matt? God, I can't with you, man. Jack, I'm gonna let you go and let Matt think about what you just said.
I mean, I don't know what creature I would create, but like, why? You asked like, would that be a good idea, right? Or why
Yeah.
would we do that? Was that what you asked?
Yeah, so he asked, like, what creature would you make and what benefit would it have for people?
And like why?
Probably like create some sort of strain of bacteria that like eats garbage or something.
Oh, that'd be
Like save
cool.
the planet or something like that.
No,
That'd be cool.
So he's doing something very bold. You're doing something very chaotic.
His is just
but
cool.
Then, but
Yeah.
then where would it go? Would it go into like methane gases and then it like destroys the planet as well? You know?
Well, we'll think about that after the fact. Yeah, it's pretty. Like I said,
he just releases these bugs, and all of a sudden the world just goes.
yeah,
just one big explosion.
the ozone just melts. The ozone layer just melts. Yeah.
Matt.
I probably genetically engineer like something that's like very close to a human, but like not human. So we have like a really weird political atmosphere. So that like do we consider them human or do we like ostracize them?
Bring back Neanderthals.
So you just take a caveman.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know the real people. You know?
I mean, like, think about the benefits. Right?
His argument is like,
There's-
let's bring back
there's no
a
benefit.
subtype of human that we can marginalize and
Yeah.
oppress.
Right?
That's terrible. You're just like, I want a caveman so that they can do all this stuff for me.
Right?
Okay.
Wait,
how much-
what are animals for?
I forget.
What
I'm
do
going
we
to just erase.
what is a service dog? What is that?
What's the point of a horse anyway if we can't ride it?
Get it out of here.
I think I would do. I'd genetically. I would not genetically. I would make a creature. I'd make a big mole rat, but like make it different. So I'd have a huge mole rat that would dig holes for subway trains, so that we don't have to have people dig them anymore, and then they'd make big giant cities underneath the ground so we can start living underground for us.
What about the jobs?
What about vitamin D?
Okay.
Just supplement, bro.
Now everyone's gonna have to start supplementing.
Yeah.
Look, man, you can sit there with your Neanderthal. I got my giant.
How would anyone fix their
molar.
circadian rhythm without
Okay,
visiting the
we're
sun?
not talking about lifting, are we not? So
Wait, no.
get over it. What's your next question? Go.
What? Wait, no.
We're
Wait,
moving
hold
on.
Chill.
Nope, nope,
Yo, wait,
nope,
no,
nope,
hold on.
nope, nope,
Wait,
nope,
hold on.
nope, 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 nope. I control your mic. I will turn it off
Hey, that's nice.
in 3.
No, okay.
Okay, yeah, and that's how you lose an argument.
It's not an argument. It's
Nope,
just,
you did. You lost
that-
it. No, you lost. You lost. Wait,
all right.
wait. Before you answer your question, I want you to admit that you lost the argument.
Yeah, I got no more questions. Hold on. I just want to get back to the point. Like, what's
do you actually have any more questions?
No, I combined two of them. Sorry.
Wait,
hold on. Wait,
so what
no,
was the
wait,
hard
wait,
question?
Got one, bro.
Okay,
What is the purpose of animals? I'm gonna be honest.
is that your question?
To create ecosystems. Reality
Very
is,
good answer.
there's every single animal fills a certain spot in an ecosystem that helps another animal in some way.
Yeah.
Realistically, look at something as simple as a keystone species, for example, like the beaver. Without them, there would be no ponds for a fish, so then guess what? The fishes are screwed. There would be no fish in that pond, so that means there's no food for the birds to eat it, so they're screwed too. Realistically, every species fills a specific purpose, and it is biologically designed to do that purpose just good enough that it keeps a kind of sense of balance across the world.
What's your purpose, Matt?
You think anything would happen if we just killed all of them? Like all the animals?
Yes, the
Yeah.
world will just end.
No.
It's the same thing. If we killed bees, the world will just end.
Well, the world would be fine, I think.
No, it would
how
be
that's-
over.
Well, I would
Because
be fine.
Don't get
Like,
me wrong,
we
there's
probably
other
would.
there's other pollen, there's other insects that carry pollen like bees, but they're not as like efficient. So like if we got rid of all the bees in the world, like 65% of the world's like plants would stop growing. That's a fact basically.
Right, but like
Random number.
we would die with the
That
the
is
Earth
a
would
random
be
number,
fine.
but like it's just like you don't even know what you're talking about half the time.
Hey.
You sit there and you combine 2 questions when you say
Wait.
3, and now you're done. You're done,
Wait.
man. Your segment's over.
Just answer the question.
What's your question?
Would you kill all of one animal?
Okay.
Ooh, wait, we can
which
turn that
one?
into an interesting one. If you had to kill
Yeah,
one
yeah.
specific
Yeah.
species and it
Alright.
had to be an animal, what animal would it be?
Mosquitoes. 100%.
Why?
Because they give malaria, they suck blood, they're just annoying, they cause me to itch.
I think you just got a personal thing against them.
Man.
Bro's holding a grudge.
Oh.
Against
saying, man.
something that doesn't even have like a consciousness, dude. Come on.
I would say maybe
What are you thinking?
like
huh?
something scary. Something that's like gonna like some snake that's gonna kill you.
So like a
We could
king
probably
cobra.
we could do without those.
So a
yeah.
king cobra.
Yeah.
So he would get rid of a king cobra, get rid of mosquitoes.
Whatever the bug that goes. Is it like it's something?
The cicadas.
Yeah,
Yeah,
cicadas.
cicadas.
Yeah, no.
I agree.
Oh,
They come out every 7
I
years.
hate those guys.
But they don't come out enough though. They
Oh,
only come out like
they
every
do.
7 years.
Well, you know
though.
some science behind that.
Yeah.
Very interesting. The reason they do that, it's like a strategy so they can have the most young successfully survive and reproduce.
Mm.
So it's basically they flood the market every 7 years. And
Yep.
when I say flood the market, I mean the market for food.
Mhm.
So they just dump thousands of young into the world. And
Mhm.
there's so many that all the predators can't possibly eat all of them.
Yeah.
And so because there's so many, there's a huge portion that survive because all the predators are full,
Yeah.
right? And then these ones propagate the next generation.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. There's I don't know a ton about it. There's a little research about how the timing of the cicada, I don't know, when they all get, released from the ground or whatever, when they all come out of their cocoon or whatever,
Yeah.
is calibrated to the life cycle and development cycle of the predators that are going to potentially eat them.
Yeah.
So they are hatched at the time when there's the least amount of young of the predator.
Yeah.
It's very interesting.
Well, that actually is very interesting. Caesar, what's your animal?
See, I'm kind of a fan of getting rid of orcas. I'll be honest, like, in my opinion, just any apex predator like that, realistically, they're at the point of the food chain where they're already barely being supported to begin with. So getting rid of them won't do anything that really detriments society. On top of that, we get rid of them. Guess what? SeaWorld protesters no longer have anything to protest about. They could do other things.
It's like, just let the polar bears die. It's like,
Exactly.
there's only a few left anyway, and we forget about the problem.
What are they really doing, right?
Yeah.
They don't help the economy.
I feel bad for Coca-Cola. They're going to pretty soon
Do
have
they
to
have
change
a
that
job?
mascot.
What's wrong with you? I gotta show you something on break, Jack. It's funny.
How do you think we can like integrate different animals that we aren't already integrating like into society, like service dogs, but like a different way?
That's a good question.
Service ostriches.
So
No.
we're gonna answer this question. We'll go on break after. I would take. I think I would take. I don't know. What do you think, Jack?
My
This
first
is
thought.
supposed to be yours.
My first thought is beavers.
Me? This is my question.
No, like I thought we were still on the whole like if you had to remove an animal.
No, I said mosquitoes.
Oh.
But like one animal I would try to incorporate more into society would probably be beavers, because I mean they just have this fixed action pattern to like take stuff
I
and put
actually
it
like
in
that
other
answer.
places
Yeah.
and like build stuff.
Yeah.
They wouldn't be too bad to have around working on the job site. You know, give them a hard hat.
Get them in here.
What do you?
People
What
like,
do
"They're
you?
taking all our
What about you,
jobs."
Matt? What about you, Matt?
You're gonna have to come back to me, Caesar. Do you have
Okay,
something?
I'm actually gonna be serious with this one. I mean, I love ostriches, but part of me wants to actually say bacteria in a weird enough way. Like, what if there was a way we could have a organism that small be able to help our body in a way that we specifically desired? Like, I know there's already antibiotics and vaccines, but like I'm talking like, what if we could tell this bacteria, hey, could you go through our bloodstream and fix this vein for us?
That's a really interesting point, and I think some of that function, at least, is being attempted with like nanotechnology. So they'll create like little, like incredibly tiny little robots to go in your body and do this stuff. And this is like a new field. But I mean, it's a great point. I think bacteria is huge now in all aspects of biological research, because we can use them for so many different things. I mean, a lot of neuroscience research uses certain, proteins or whatever isolated from bacteria, enzymes, whatever. So bacteria, huge. That's a really good point.
I think I was considering getting the like some sort of animal. I don't know which, but having like an immobilizing like poison where
So you get a dart frog.
yeah, something like that. That's not like dangerous though. It's just immobilizes someone.
So you get like
If any animal like that exists, you put them in the police force or a cheetah.
No more tasers.
just animals.
Or just like a cheetah in the police force,
I'd
Like
get.
catch
I'd
someone.
What
probably
did you
do.
buy?
I'd probably do sperm. I'd probably do sperm whale.
Huh?
What? How would we use that?
I just use them as submarines.
Oh, yeah, that's.
So
That's
we
just
call
like
a-
blubber.
I mean, what are their insides really doing? Right?
It's like oil and blubber, obviously.
so we would just pull a Pinocchio, just
Yeah,
sit
so
in
you
the
just
mouth.
sit in the mouth with all the computers. Just be like, let's get them all waterproof.
Yeah. How
Be
would you
fine.
get any reception in there?
We get an antenna and put it through the porthole.
I think that's blocking basic needs.
We'll make another one.
Yeah. All right, we're gonna go on a break, and then after that, we're gonna talk about
Folklore.
folklore creatures, vampires, wendigos, and werewolves. Until then, please enjoy "Elastic Heart" by Sia. And we're back, and Matt decided to take his headset off and walk outside
I'm
and just
here. I'm here.
stick his butt out the door. What are you doing, man?
Mating process.
Okay.
You had to have the wind between the valleys. blowing.
Okay. Whoa. Please.
That's scary.
Oh my God, I can't.
All
All right.
right. Well, we're talking about folklore now.
Yeah, we're talking about creatures from folklore now, not mythology anymore. We're moving past mythology. We're not talking about like so much animals anymore. We're talking about more humanoid creatures, and yeah. So we're talking about vampires, werewolves, and what what else? Wendigos. So we're first gonna probably talk about vampires. I'm gonna talk about the origins of why vampires came to be. So there's a guy named Vlad the Impaler, and Vlad the Impaler was a interesting guy. I can't really go into too much detail about what he did because it's too gory. But like,
what did he do?
I can't.
Ah, okay.
Here's, so he would drink people's blood, and what would happen was, like, he would do a lot of other things to scare a lot of people. Like, his influence he was like kind of like the king of Romania in the 1500s, I think, right? Yeah, from 1463 to 1470 something, he was the king of Romania, and what he did was he would drink people's blood, and people from there like believed in like Dracula and all that because he would do all that stuff, and it's kind of where Dracula became a thing from that man right there. So, what are your thoughts about that? Like, do you think that like this guy that would just do all these things was actually a vampire and said he only could survive off the sustenance of people like that? Or do you think it was just all kind of
So did this guy
fake?
go outside at all? Like, did he get like dissolved by the sunlight?
No.
Oh, he's kept
Was
up.
he a fan of garlic?
Maybe.
Yeah, where do you know where all these myths come from around like vampire like killing? Like, you have to like stake them by the heart. You have
So
Why are they always so specific? Like, garlic only wards them off. Wooden stake through the heart only.
well, the steak stuff was because of him, of what he would do to people. Yeah. So that's kind of like a area of where that would happen. Like the garlic and like the cross stuff and like can't see yourself reflection. It's kind of like all that was kind of more when like Dracula came out. It wasn't really like crazy. Like the only things from there was like can't see his reflection, steak, and garlic. When we got to like bigger media, that's where they kind of started adding like from Twilight, like their skin glows in the sun and like all this stuff, and their eyes are bloodshot red and all that. Like, and it just became like a whole thing as like more vampire shows like Vampire Diaries, Twilight.
My
stuff.
babysitter's a vampire.
My babysitter. I was literally gonna say that my babysitter's a vampire. Stuff like that kind of just like push like this even crazier narratives about vampires that are like so weird, like that. Like they would all start from this one guy. So, any thoughts about that?
About the problematic stereotypes about vampires and pop culture?
Yeah. I guess just to kind of about vampires in general. Like, do you think legitimately that there could possibly be vampires walking around us? We just don't know about it, and like a lot of these things that, like the garlic and all that, could actually work, or do you think they wouldn't work? So like my question is kind of, do you think vampires exist, and if they do you think these methods of stopping them actually work?
I mean, I think they probably don't. And I think a lot of the methods are based on, like, because a lot of this stuff is like based like a game of telephone.
Yeah.
Right. Like there's stories. I remember I read like as a kid the story of this guy, pretty famous. You probably could find it if you look for it. But it's this guy who was believed to be a vampire, and they did all this stuff to stake in the heart. And I believe the garlic thing might have sprung out of that somehow. But it's like they make these weird connections, and then they stick, right? And then they get amplified through media.
Yeah.
And then we just associate them forever so strongly with this idea of a vampire.
Yeah.
Which really isn't I mean, it's like you said, Vlad the Impaler. That's just a guy who's, disturbed.
Just
Yeah.
a pale white guy drinking blood.
Yeah.
Not a vampire.
I mean, probably part of it could have also just been at the time sort of how people were. I mean, look at the Salem witch trials.
Yeah.
In order to outcast people, in order to determine if they were a witch, they thought if they sink, then they're not a witch.
Yeah, or
But
they
if they
put
float-
stones on them,
Yeah.
and like they didn't crush with stones, then they were a witch. But like these things, like they happen. Like one time they catapult a guy somewhere, and it was just crazy. Like it was crazy what they would do.
A lot of it's
to,
superstition.
yeah,
Right.
They catapult a guy in the sky, and if he flew, like he was not a witch. But if he didn't, then he was that he was going to go to heaven. It was just crazy.
I don't know if you know B.F. Skinner. He was a famous behaviorist, and he did interesting research with pigeons, where he put them in a cage and covered the cage completely with like a blanket or whatever, but something where he could see in and they couldn't see out, so they couldn't see anything. And then they were given food at random times.
Mm-hmm.
And what he saw was, over time, these pigeons began to replicate the behaviors that they did before the food came. So if a pigeon was like walking in a circle and suddenly the food came, now when the pigeon's hungry, he's going to walk in a circle.
Yeah.
Right? So a lot of it's just this happened this way, and then through, obviously it gets complex with humans, then passed down through generations and cultures. But, animals develop superstitions, all animals, not just humans.
Matt, do you believe in vampires? And if you do or don't, like, do you think the methods would be able to stop them?
I do not believe in vampires. I think
You believe in the flat Earth, so I mean, like, like that wouldn't be too crazy.
No, wait. All right, we're good. No, I think vampires. There's no way they could ever exist. First off, everything's like videotaped, at least nowadays. So they definitely can't exist in the modern world.
Apparently, you can't see them through phones or pictures.
Yeah, that's very convenient.
Oh, I'm just saying.
Apparently, you just can't see them.
You can see them.
They're
you just
there,
can't
though.
see them
You just
through
can't see
phones.
them.
The Illuminati exists. They just hide well.
You can't see them through reflection. So, like, if you take a photo, it's like a type of reflection, I guess you could say, and it just makes them kind of elusive.
So they can't be seen through refractions of light.
Yes.
So if you're wearing like goggles, you can't see them.
Maybe.
It's a little weird. But no possible way. Like, what kind of ability even is that? How do you get that genetically speaking?
Like the ability to crave like blood.
No, the ability to stop people from seeing you through reflections.
Well, it's crazy. Like things like people in Africa. Some people are immune to HIV and like other people in the world.
What is that?
I'm just saying, like there's crazy things like that. They're in the world like that. People are just naturally immune to things.
Some people have 6 fingers.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm trying to say.
That's
so maybe someone can be elusive, Matt.
No, light doesn't work like that.
Caesar.
I feel like that's when we're just kind of starting to talk into science fiction versus science kind of reality.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, sure, there are animals who exist who do feast on blood. Like we see ticks, mosquitoes, actual vampire bats as they gain their common name from.
Yeah.
But realistically, the idea of a human somehow gaining out of nowhere the ability to only gain nutrients through blood, that's a complete biological change.
I mean, there's a lot of nutrients in blood, right?
Right.
Yeah, so, I mean, like...
I don't know if it would be enough, though, to survive off of.
It would mainly... There has been a lot of...
I mean, Vlad survived.
But then
off of
another
it for
thing
years.
as well is just the idea of light. Like, how is it that then you're able to physically change your atoms so then certain light hits you, but certain light doesn't?
Yeah, at the end of the day, physics is still...
Well,
kind of
Vlad
obstacle.
would also, like... He would eat regular food and, like, dip his food in, like, the blood and eat it. Like, he wouldn't just drink that and just only have that. Like, he would have other stuff. But, like, I don't know, man. I think that people think they're like that, and then they'll do stuff like that, like Megan Fox and Machine Gun Kelly drink each other's blood. And I think that's weird.
What do you think about, like, people eating their placenta, like, after they have a kid? Have you heard about that?
Yeah.
What are your
Isn't it
thoughts?
good for you? I thought it was good for you.
It's
I mean,
full of
it's like-
nutrients, apparently.
It was like what you're taking a multivitamin at one time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
like,
I mean, there are certain sort of religious and different kinds of cultural beliefs behind that. So in that sense, I can kind of understand that just because it's a social norm. Like, just it's kind of like the whole idea of how certain places in the world eat certain things that we don't.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of sort of
people
what the
in New,
social normality
people in New
is.
Guinea eat guinea pigs. We don't eat guinea pigs here.
Yeah.
You know?
We gotta adopt that.
Okay.
top on that trend.
Get our supplements.
All right, so we're going to move on to the next creature. We're going to go into werewolves. So it's kind of the same thing. So, like, we go from someone that can't stay in the daytime to someone that can't, they hates the night, basically. Werewolves. They hate full moons, specifically. Now, werewolves have been a thing for, like, centuries in different cultures and all this stuff. And the one thing they have in common is, like, werewolves are, like, allergic to silver. And the reason is because the god that cursed people to be werewolves was also the god of the moon and silver. So in the way of like why they're allergic to silver is because that god cursed them to be like kind of like a reaction towards the moon and silver, basically. You know what I'm saying?
Do you know what's the connection between the moon and silver? I'm not familiar.
Because a lot of people, like, when they look at the moon, like, you know, like how it has a crescent sometimes. Some people like kind of call like a silver crescent or something like
silver
that.
Moon. I've heard
The
that,
silver moon, like people say that a lot, and just back then people just thought like it looked like silver, like, so silver moon, like where like it made sense kind of thing. So like, do you think now, from vampires, things like that, do you think there's a possibility of people transforming into wolves?
It's pretty interesting because if you look at, it seems like it's kind of off topic, but I'll bring it back. Like look at chimpanzees and humans.
Yep.
We share a huge amount of our DNA.
Yeah.
Right, almost 99, or it's like 99%, something crazy.
Yeah.
But we look so different, right? And a lot of that comes down to not having different genes, but those genes are expressed differently. So I think it's more plausible that we could mess around with our genes and become somewhat of like more of a primate-like thing, because we share more genes with primates than we do with like dogs or like wolves, for example.
Well, like
so it'd be harder to tweak our genes to become them versus like a chimp or something.
Same time, like apparently you become a werewolf, you get bitter scratch. So I'm kind of wondering if this curse isn't so much of a mystical thing, but like if we somehow it became like a virus or a bacteria kind of thing like that. If for some odd reason it affected like us with the certain types of moon cycles, everything like that, and like becoming allergic to like silver. Like, to be honest, in my opinion, I don't think it's that crazy compared to vampires, because the possibility of like these things happening, like for example, what Matt brought up earlier, like the ice glaciers melting, and like there's this new zombie virus that makes people's skin kind of like look zombie-like, everything, and goes away. And these are just things I just didn't think was going to happen, but just happen, you know?
Yep.
So, like, I feel like out of anything, like, I think the vampire stuff, there's no way that exists, but that's a choice people can make. I think this might have more of a plausibility than...
Yeah, well, I mean, the initial thing I said was that we don't have, like, the genes, right? Like, we don't have, like, the wolf genes. But, I mean, I was talking to Caesar about this on break, talking about viruses and how they're used in biology research and stuff. And the way that viruses work is that they take genetic material, they take, RNA in some cases, and they bring that into your body, and your body starts to incorporate that into its own genome and transcriptome, right? And so... in that way, maybe there is some virus that could introduce these genes that are at one point were foreign to humans, can be introduced into our genome, right, through some virus. Yeah, I mean, it's possible.
Yeah.
And then you'd have to like procreate with it in you, then like millions and millions of years. Maybe we'll be werewolves. You know? And then we just
like, for example, like I'll give an example of a type of like there's a fungus that infects like ants and bees and like other insects that goes in them and changes the whole anatomy that makes them grow fungus outside their bodies, and basically after the animal's dead it still is a zombie like and still walks around and moves around. I guess I'm not so much talking about talking about zombies now, so we're kind of going to zombie kind of thing, and we'll add zombies to the list. But like the reason that fungus isn't in us, right, is because that fungus is called can you look that up, Joe, please, as I'm talking about it? The fungus cordyceps, and then there's other types of fungus too, actually, if you can look that up too. The cordyceps virus or fungus, whatever you want to call it, is a type of fungus that infects insects and other things, and cordyceps virus, zombie ant fungus, zombie ant fungus. Thank you, Joe. And basically, the thing infects ants, and over time will kill the host, and it will grow sprouts on its head and like different spores to help make it transfer to the other animals, because it's more airborne and everything. the reason it's not in humans is because our body temperatures are too hot for the fungus to survive. So if it got in us, our body temperature would kill it. But if the world, for some reason, there's no reason for this fungus to evolve, but the world got a little hotter, like another 2 degrees hotter, why couldn't this fungus evolve to be in people?
I remember, especially me and one of my professors were actually talking about this, funny enough, recently. He was pretty adamant about just the idea that an ant's nervous system compared to our own is night and day. And comparing the two, our nervous system is extremely complex with several different parts, and it's so just overall large in reality. An ant's nervous system is extremely simple. So for that basic motor function for the fungi to invade it and then get whatever it wants, like, for example, I know they usually climb up to a high place, the spores grow, and then they release it so then they could obviously reproduce. But it's almost kind of ties into that. I know it's become a recent show that's been gaining lots of popularity. Last of Us.
I played the video games. I love that show.
And that's where kind of a lot of people really are now talking about this virus, because this fungi, because it's been around for a while now.
Well, no, it's because of that show too. They literally, the beginning of this thing, like what I just talked about, is literally the intro of how they talk about it, and it's just scary to think about, because like literally like the reason I think that too is, don't get me wrong, like you're right, there's a lot of it's very night and day for the systems, but there's a lot of viruses and like bacteria that have only been in animals that have evolved to be in humans, and then we get sick. So like I'm just trying to say like that even though like these different animals have simpler, complex, or more complex or simpler like nervous systems and all that than us, there's no reason why it won't eventually get to us. Like we believe it or not, that fungus that's in like ants, and like it's in bees, ants, and a lot of different insects. It's not just in ants. Like that fungus, we actually ingest that fungus. It's in our food. We just don't notice it because our body's always eating something because it grows with it. Like we're always eating stuff, like because a lot of that stuff's in South America, and a lot of like our fruits are grown in South America, like bananas and all this stuff, and they're brought here, and the fungus just lays on the banana, and there's no way to like really like know if it's there or not.
You can't just wash it.
You can wash it, but like a lot of people don't wash their fruit or anything. So like I'm saying, like we ingest this stuff and all this, and then like we just naturally have it, but our body just filters it out or kills it because our body temperature is so high. But like I'm saying, like if the fungus evolves to be able to get into higher animals and like higher temperatures and survive on higher temperatures, isn't that just a scary thought?
It is.
It is. You want to continue?
I was going to say, like Caesar made a good point. It's a lot harder to direct a much more complex nervous system like that of a human.
Think hard, man.
He's really stumped.
He really stumped me.
Sorry.
No. But also it's because the human motivational systems have a lot more inputs than like an ant's, for example, and a lot more like output neurons, like where we're going to go and stuff. It's a lot simpler. For humans, the choices are more seemingly more endless, you know?
Yeah, even though like we look at ants, they do look like they might not know as much as us, and they might not have as much of a complex like nervous system and brain as we do, but they're more like, I'm gonna be honest, they're more organized than we are. Sometimes they have a system, they fall in line, they grab something, they go to the queen, they drop it off, and they build. They have networks in cities, and not cities, but like ant hills and all this stuff where there's million, or like not millions, like hundreds of just like tunnels in their ant holes where they just have like these places they build and everything. Like these things are, they might look simple, but they're so complex.
Yeah, they may have like all these tunnel systems, but we have boots. We can kick it down. Like, what's the point of all this culture diversity? I mean, are they even letting like other ants into their systems? You know,
they actually don't. Funny enough,
they fight a lot actually, but. You know, I'm just saying, like, I know they seem simpler, but they're definitely like not as simple as we like to just give them.
The reason ants partly are able to work that cohesively and like that subservient to the queen, and are willing to die for their fellow workers.
It's all their mother.
Well, they actually share more genetic relatedness. They share more genes than like I would with you.
Yeah, because every single ant it's their mother. It's all different fathers probably, but it's it's the same queen.
Yep.
Until eventually the queen dies, and then like a new queen is emerged and all this stuff. And it doesn't matter. It's just always the same thing, you know.
You mentioned earlier you were talking about like a virus like that,
Yeah.
Potentially hopping to humans.
Yeah.
And like, you know, viruses evolve very quickly and they evolve in unpredictable ways. But I think the one thing that would make that more difficult is, like I said, it's a huge jump in complexity to a human nervous system, and there has to be some reproductive potential within that jump, where the thing can still propagate its genetic material.
I'll give examples of like things that jump from like Ebola, swine flu, like the bird flu, things like this that were in lower complex animals that have jumped to humans. And it's in these things are just environmental. These reasons happen because of climate change and all these things. Like these things just want to evolve and live in these other animals because it's just more suitable for them. So like for like fungus, in my opinion, will definitely eventually evolve. It's just a matter of kind of like when.
Well, it kind of then ties into the idea of why is there a need for evolution?
Yeah.
Usually evolution is created because a resource is usually limited. So for example, with a fungi that try to evolve to go after, for example, our nervous system, there would have to be such a low amount of their current existing food, like meaning there has to be so few ants, and there has to be so few other insects that to evolve is necessary for survival. Because otherwise, why evolve? It's just going to waste energy that they don't need to waste.
Yeah, well, that's fair,
Yeah, natural selection isn't like something that like picks and chooses. It doesn't have like a brain of its own. It just happens. And it happens based on their environment around them. And if nothing is wrong in that environment, what's the point? There's literally no reason.
That was a good talk. But we're going to go into the last one, which is the Wendigos. Do you guys know much about the Wendigo?
Not too much.
Until Dawn.
Until Dawn. Yeah, Wendigos is actually... Until Dawn is one of my favorite games. It's a decision-making game, and the main monster is actually Wendigo. And I'll explain what a Wendigo is. A Wendigo is a Native American... like folk creature that was only in like parts of Native Americans in
Are they in the mountains?
The mountains and the Great Lakes. Those were the like the tribes that really believed in them, because a lot of the tribes believed that those creatures lived in the mountains and lived in like dense forests and by like water and stuff. And they're like, it's kind of crazy to me that like all these different groups around like the same areas like kind of all believed in the same thing. It was the same kind of story and same kind of everything, which is more arguable because they're kind of closer, so you could definitely pass the story. But a Wendigo is a human that basically like eats another human, and what happens is the human will evolve, and not evolve, but like turn into like a kind of a werewolf kind of thing, where they're kind of like more immune to everything. They're not affected by the sun, nothing. They're only affected by like fire. They can only be hurt by fire, basically.
They have like longer appendages.
They can mimic other people's voices. Like you've heard like the skinwalker stuff. Like a lot of times, like those are related to Wendigo because they can mimic people's voices, basically. And they have long appendages, long legs, long everything, and they could just kind of like, they're apex predators, and they would hunt people and eat people and all that. And Native Americans, a lot of time when Native Americans were missing, they blamed that. And sometimes when Native Americans were alone in the woods, they can hear like a dead relative talking to them, and they think it, like trying to lure them somewhere, and they think, oh, it's probably that. So what do you guys think?
It could probably just tie back into that original topic that we were talking about with the mythological creatures. Of just, it's just we're trying to associate fear with something that we can just all collectively agree is just
I think a lot of times it's like a lot of grief they use.
Oh, yeah.
Like a lot of times, like when like I don't know if you ever lost them. Like I've lost someone, And sometimes I could hear their voice in my head after the fact, because it's just like you can remember what they sound like, basically, you know? And like, I feel like a lot of times when that happens with people and they hear that, they can just like, they're like, oh, it must be like that, you know what I mean? And so like, I think a lot of times a lot of grief with these issues.
Yeah, I mean, like we said, it's like it's a way to fill gaps in our logic and understanding of the world.
Yeah.
Because sometimes things don't make sense. We need to find ways to make sense of them. And I think it comes back to the point of these mythological creatures or folklore, whatever, serving as tools, right? More so than anything, something we can use to make sense of the world around us and to ease some of the cognitive dissonance associated with our experience. Yep.
Yeah, and I think like overall, like all these creatures we talked about towards the end, especially, they have a lot more, unlike like griffins and manticores and stuff like that we talked at the beginning. Like, I think a lot more of these creatures at the end, like the werewolves and like zombie stuff, like vampires and wendigos, have such more of an impact in our culture because how much they've like affected a lot of people, and a lot of people believe more in that because it's kind of more realistic, because it's like you're kind of looking at it and you can almost see a human figure in all these things. With like a griffin, you can't really see that, you know? So I think a lot of people just try to like really use those images a lot of times to like kind of reflect something that they think they are. So a lot of people think they're vampires, a lot of people think they're werewolves, a lot of people think they're this and that. It's kind of crazy, but like a lot of people do that stuff, and I think they do it because it helps explain kind of like this void that they're kind of missing, you know, a lot of times, especially with the vampire stuff.
Yeah, I'd say definitely it's just, I think they're just stories just to warn people about certain things, like drinking blood is just weird, you know, don't do that. But no,
Yeah.
eating another human, obviously, you're just warning about that.
Yeah.
So you make up these little creatures that
Mm-hmm.
then you tell your kids like, oh, the Wendigo's gonna take you away or something, or Santa's gonna take you away, something weird.
No, that sounds like guarantee they said that too to make sure people wouldn't eat other people. You know?
and then they start blaming that. So then it's like
Mhm.
more superstition,
Yeah.
and it's just kind of propagated throughout an entire tribe.
Yeah.
It was an interesting point you made about how they kind of all converge, or a lot of them converge on this humanoid-like
Yeah.
shape, and how that resonates with us.
Mm.
I think it has a lot to do with the way that we kind of anthropomorphize everything.
Yeah.
Right? We see people in, the moon, right, for example. So I think that ties into it, but a lot of it's also like agency detection. Like our brains evolved to be very, very sensitive to seeing humans and people in things.
Yeah.
So like when you see something that looks like eyes or a face in the woods, like you're super quick. People's brains will like create things,
Yeah.
right? Because you see something for a split second that looks kind of weird, and suddenly you see a face.
Yeah.
It's like pattern recognition.
Exactly. Yeah.
I think it's really cool though, what you said about like anthropomorphizing things, because there's actually a philosophical argument that's like, obviously, how would we know like what God is? Obviously, we see like a human as God, but then if you're like a cow, obviously you believe in like a cow God, right? You believe in like an ant God if you're ant. So like, what is that next step? We can't really imagine something that we don't think is us, because we're like the top of the chain.
Yeah.
Well, going on to the God part, it's said in the Bible that God created man in his liking. So, like in his likeness. So, sure, we don't really actually know what any of these gods really look like. But usually, through the text of them, people tend to interpret it in many different ways. That's why, for example, a lot of the Hindu gods, how there's like over hundreds of them, and each one of them has their own 100 different variations of how they look. Some have 4 arms, some have a weird tongue, some are blue. It's just about whatever kind of your interpretation of it really is, and it could vary so heavily from person to person.
Yeah.
There's also interesting connections between types of religions and like the type of environment that the culture is developed in. So like desert areas, like nomadic, in the Middle East, stuff like that. That's where you get a lot more like monotheistic cultures kind of cropping up. Whereas like you go in the jungle, right? You go in the Amazon, right? And the religion is a lot more polytheistic.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, just think about it in a very, very basic way. Think about being out in the desert, right? And it's literally just nothing but sand and the sun.
Yeah.
Right. Versus the Amazon, where there's so much stuff to process, and there's so many different things for you to like keep track of. I mean, it makes sense that our value systems, in terms of religion, developed along these lines.
Yeah. No, I like. It's all very fascinating, really. Like, especially like, because if you go over like every single place, every single where has a folklore creature. Like, you go to Ireland, they have the banshee. You go to Japan, they have like the oni. Like, they have a lot of these things like that are just so uniquely different and so like and so ingrained in their culture that it's just kind of like a crazy thing, really. Because Wendigos was a Native American thing, because a lot of cannibalism was a big thing. Banshees were a big thing because I don't know, it's just like a lot of things.
Ladies were screaming.
Ladies screaming.
Scary ghost,
Scary ghost. Yeah. But it's just like, like in Romania, like it's the world. It's like regarded as like the Dracula's birthplace because of Vlad. Like you have all these places that have all these things, and like you have all these mythical creatures that have all made different impacts on different countries, and it's definitely interesting to look at. And I think we might at some point probably go into great depths about kind of like major countries and like their biggest mythical creature, because you go to like La Llorona in Mexico, and you have like La Llorona, and she's like a ghost that drowns kids. Like, it's a whole thing. Like those are the things that like parents told their kids to scare their kids from leaving the house or from talking to strangers. It was all different things to try to impact these things. And La Llorona was a real person too, that like did that to her kids, and they just used that as like now as like a scare tactic to make sure they don't talk to strangers.
Or even speaking of like Latin countries, there's also the chupacabra.
Yeah, chupacabra. Yep. And that thing eats dogs, apparently.
And its name literally is goat killer.
Goat killer, dog. Yeah, and those things like just make you want to protect your farm. Like, there's just these things that we've been made to kind of influence different things.
They all have like a hidden purpose.
Yes.
For like, you want to protect your crops, you don't want cannibalism. It's like a hidden little message at the end of a fairy tale.
Well, the chupacabra is the perfect example of like filling in gaps of understanding with a human creation, like something a figment of our imagination, right? It's like, my goats are getting killed, and they're getting killed in a weird way that I've never seen before.
Yeah.
Let me come up with a creature that could have possibly done
I know,
this.
chupacabras are real.
I've seen them.
I've seen them with my own eyes. What are you going to do about it?
Yeah. I mean, also keep in mind, there's also Bigfoot for us.
Yeah.
A lot of people like to believe in Bigfoot. There's TV shows about trying to hunt Bigfoot.
I mean, like, if you go to, like, the Congo, like the central Congo, like, a lot of people think there's dinosaurs that live in the jungles of Congo, because there's been talks of, like, this giant, like, dinosaur creature that is in the Congo, and a lot of the Native Americans, like, not the natives, like, a lot of the natives there have talked about this creature, and that they're like, I don't go there because they're too scared, because they've seen this thing. And a lot of people try to go in the Congo, but it's so dense that like, no one's really been able to do it, and people get lost all the time.
I mean, fear is a very powerful emotion.
Yeah.
Realistically, fear can make you see things. It can make you believe things. The idea that something like that can exist is always enough. You don't even have to fully believe it. It's just, now that it's in the back of your mind, all of a sudden, if you're alone in that jungle, now you hear any subtle noise, like a tree falling, you think, oh, that's the dinosaur in the corner.
Yeah. And that's just kind of our basic human instincts from our ancestors, just to be so self-aware and so afraid of everything, because that's just kind of how it was.
I have a good philosophical question.
Yeah.
What's stronger, fear or love?
Fear.
I would honestly say both are strong in their own senses. Love can push you to do things that can normally seem physically impossible. I mean, there are countless stories, and some of them could be real, some of them could be just made up through the news, but there are stories of, like, for example, mothers lifting up cars when their children got ran over. So in that sense,
but you can say that's fear of the person saying that they're gonna.
Well, I mean, you could argue that
motherly love.
That love that part of love is fear. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And then the idea is just those two emotions. They're both opposite, but they work so cohesively in a weird sense that they can just both be classified as such powerful emotions. We use them both every day, even in arguing. You use the love that you have for your own beliefs, and you use the fear of losing sometimes.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
I think love is like fearing for someone or something as if it were you.
Yeah.
You know.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
But we're all out of time.
What are you gonna do?
What are you gonna do about it? Please join us next Monday. Jack's come back again on Monday.
Yep.
Kissin's always gonna be here.
Yeah.
Sadly, Joe's gonna be here. Brie will be back Wednesday. On Monday, we're gonna talk about senses. Senses, like we're gonna talk about there's more than 5 senses for humans, and we're gonna talk about Jedis. So if you're a Star Wars fan, please listen.
Those are two topics that go together.
They do actually.
Oh, wait, my bad, man.
They kind of do.
All right,
We'll see.
You'll
Yeah.
see.
we'll all see.
When you're not prepped for this, and I am, and I'm gonna school you. We'll see.
All right, man. Good
All right.
luck.
All right. Yeah. Good luck. Good luck to you.
Thank you.
Okay. Until then, have a nice night. Good night.
Right there, mate. You're listening to the Lounge Around podcast. Stick around for more.